Space Bounty Brides by Janson Davies. Chapter 1. Sarah's Last Stand. The moon was red with rust and crimson clay. Outpost 9 hung low over the mining fields, its domes cracked, its air recycled too many times. Freight haulers passed overhead like ghosts, and the only law was the one you could enforce with a blaster. The Paladin touched down in silence. It looked like junk. Patched hull, scorched wings, a cockpit that groaned when it opened. But inside it was a predator. Pete, the military-grade robot, scanned the perimeter. Target confirmed. Bride designation, Sarah. Married a hauler named Jupiter. Took his ship, his credits, and his spine. Trace Hawkins stepped out, cowboy hat cocked and coat trailing dust. She's still here. Pete's optics narrowed. She's waiting. They found her in the saloon dome, leaning against the bar, boots up, blaster on her hip. She was still wearing her white wedding dress. She was beautiful in the way fire is beautiful. Dangerous, flickering, and impossible to ignore. "You're late," she said. "You're armed," Trace replied. "Fair trade." The saloon went quiet. Miners ducked behind tables. Pete moved to flank her, but she raised a hand. "Don't bother, Tin Man. I've seen your specs. You're fast, but I'm mean." Trace stepped forward. "You married Jupiter. You left him bleeding. He married me," she said. "I just didn't stay." Outside, the wind howled. Inside, Trace Hawkins touched his weapon with his fingertips. "Let's settle this outside," she smiled. "Old West rules? Draw on 3. Or 1. They went out into the street and were immediately met by 6 alien mercenaries Sarah had hired to do her dirty work. As the aliens rushed, Trace and Pete, they hit a disruptor force field Pete had thrown up around them. The aliens sparked against the barrier and then collapsed unconscious. "I knew you wouldn't play fair," Trace said, facing off with Sarah. He watched her start her draw. They moved fast. Blasters flared. Pete intercepted her shot mid-air, redirecting it into the sky. Trace rolled, fired, clipped her shoulder. She dropped her weapon, laughing. "Damn, you're better than the stories." Pete restrained her. "Target secured." Trace holstered his weapon. "You're going to answer for Jupiter." She looked up, blood on her lip. "He was cruel. I was crueler. That's the law of the new frontier." They walked her to the Paladin. Miners watched, silent. No one intervened. As the ship lifted, Pete ran diagnostics. 1 down. 27 flagged. Trace stared into the stars. "Next." Pete pulled up a name. "Nara. Ghost Bride. Derelict freighter. No confirmed sightings." Trace nodded. "Then we chase her into the shadows." The Paladin vanished into hyperspace, carrying a prisoner, a robot, and a man who didn't believe in vows. But he tracked those who broke them. Chapter 2. The Ghost Bride. The graveyard drifted in silence. Hundreds of freighters, haulers, and colony ships floated in the Karen drift, abandoned, gutted, forgotten. Some still blinked, some still whispered. All were dead. Pete scanned the wreckage from the Paladin's cockpit. Signal fragment matches Nara. Bride designation, married a terraformer on Vega 6. Took his ship, his savings, and his name. Trace adjusted course. "She's here." Somewhere. They docked with a derelict hauler, the Mercy's wake. Its hull was scarred, its interior cold. Pete's optics flickered. Life signs, faint. Could be her, could be a trap. Inside, the ship was a tomb. Vows etched into bulkheads. Wedding band melted into the control panel. A single message looped on the comms. "I was never his. I was never anyone's." Pete moved ahead, scanning for traps. No explosives, no drones. Just fragments from the past. Trace followed the voice. They found a trail, footprints in dust, a broken necklace, a half-burned photo of a man smiling beside a woman who wasn't Nara. She's rewriting her past, Pete said. No, Trace replied. She's erasing it. A shadow moved in the corridor. Pete raised his weapon. Nara, Trace called. You're flagged. You're wanted. The shadow paused, then vanished. They chased her through the wreckage, hallways collapsing, gravity flickering. Pete lost her signal. She's masking herself. Using the ship's decay to hide, Trace stopped. She's not running. She's haunting. They reached the bridge. Empty. A single chair turned toward the stars. A voice played through the speakers. You hunt brides. But I was never a bride. I was a ghost in a wedding dress. Pete scanned the systems. She's gone. No escape pod. No jump trace. Trace stared at the stars. She wanted to be forgotten. They returned to the Paladin. Pete logged the failure. Target, unresolved. Status, unknown. Trace didn't speak. As they left the graveyard, Pete looked back. She beat you. Trace nodded. She didn't run away. She disappeared. The Paladin vanished into hyperspace, chasing the next name on the list. Behind them, the drift remained, a graveyard of vows, and a ghost who refused to be found. Chapter 3. Taylor in Neon. The market moon pulsed like a dying star. Torella Prime was a hive of trade and deception. Neon-lit corridors, floating bazaars, and back-alley sanctuaries where identities were bought and sold. Brides moved through the crowd like currency. Some smiled, some watched. All were dangerous. Pete scanned the crowd from the Paladin's cockpit. Target, Taylor, married a freight captain on Demos 4, took his ship, his crew, and his route codes. Syndicate trained, armed. Unstable Trace adjusted his coat. We go in quiet. They entered the market under false registry. Pete disguised his chassis with a cloak of woven synth fiber. Trace wore a trader's badge and a scar that wasn't his. Keep eyes on the exits, he said. Pete nodded. She won't run. She'll fight. They found her in a weapons stall, bartering for plasma rounds. Her hair was braided tight, her eyes sharp. She spotted them instantly. You're late, she said. You're flagged, Trace replied. She smiled. So are you. She fired first, a scattershot blast that tore through the stall. Pete tackled Trace, shielding him with his chassis. Engaging, he said. Trace rolled, drew his weapon, and returned fire. The market erupted. Traders scattered. Drones dropped from the ceiling. Taylor vanished into the alleys. They chased her through the underbelly, pipes hissing, lights flickering. Pete took a hit to the breastplate. Damage minimal. Pursuit. Active Trace vaulted a crate, landed hard, and fired. Missed. Taylor turned, breathing hard. You think you're justice? You're just another man chasing a woman who doesn't want to get caught. I'm chasing a thief, Trace said. She laughed. Then you're chasing half the galaxy. They fought in the alley, brutal, close, dirty. Pete disabled her blaster. Trace pinned her against the wall. You're done, she spat blood. You'll never catch all of us. Pete restrained her. Target secured. Trace stared at her. You were trained, she nodded, by survivors, by ghosts, by brides who learned to shoot before they learned to cook. They walked her back through the wreckage. Traders watched. No one intervened. Back aboard the Paladin, Pete ran diagnostics. 2 captured, 1 vanished. 25 flagged Trace sat in silence. She didn't lie. Pete looked at him. You're changing. Trace didn't answer. The ship lifted into the stars, carrying a prisoner, a robot, and a man who was no longer sure what true justice looked like. Chapter 4. Lola in the Greenhouse. The colony was quiet. No alarms, no syndicate flags, just wind, soil, and the hum of a half-built greenhouse. The Paladin touched down without camouflage. Pete scanned the perimeter. Target, Lola. Married a mechanic on Series 3. No theft, no departure, no flagged activity. Trace adjusted his coat. Then why is she on our list? Pete paused. Because she didn't run. It was an anomaly. They found her among the vines, hands deep in soil, sleeves rolled, boots worn. She didn't flinch when they approached. "You're early," she said. "You're flagged," Trace replied. She smiled. "Then the list is flawed." Pete scanned her. No weapons, no escape pods, no falsified vows. Trace stepped closer. "You stayed." Lola nodded. He asked. I said yes. Then I meant it. The greenhouse was half alive. Tomatoes clung to rusted trellises. A water recycler coughed in the corner. "He's out fixing the solar grid," she said. "He doesn't know you're here." "I'm not here for him," Trace said. "I'm here for the truth." Lola wiped her hands. "The truth is simple. Some of us marry to vanish. Some of us marry to survive. I married to build something better, and I stayed because he let me." Pete paced the rows. "You know the others. Cynthia, Sarah, Taylor." Lola nodded. "I met Cynthia once. She was tired. She didn't want to steal. She wanted to breathe free air." Trace looked at her. "You're not like them." Lola shrugged. "I could have been. If he'd lied, if he'd hit me, if he'd tried to own me." Pete lowered his weapon. "She's not a target," Trace agreed. "She's a survivor." Lola handed him a data chip. "Coordinates, Cynthia's last jump. She left it for you, said you'd know what to do with it." Pete scanned it. "Encrypted. Cathedral-class vessel. Cloaked. No registry." Trace nodded. "The one they call the matron." Lola returned to the vines. "You won't find her easily. She's not a person. She's half fairy tale, half legend." Pete turned to Trace. "We chase fables now." Trace holstered his weapon. "We always have." As they walked back to the Paladin, Lola called out, "Don't forget me." "Not all brides want to run." Trace. Hawkins paused. "I won't." The ship lifted into the sky, carrying a new trail, a new silence, and the memory of a woman who stayed. Chapter 5. The Cloaked Cathedral. The cathedral ship drifted in the dark between stars. No registry, no signal, just a shape too symmetrical to be natural, too quiet to be abandoned. Pete traced its location from Lola's data chip, coordinates buried in irrigation code, masked by silence. The Paladin approached slowly, hull dimmed, weapons cold. Pete scanned the structure. Architecture, pre-imperial, no power grid, no comms, but it's occupied. Trace adjusted course. "Then we go in." They docked at a side port carved into the cathedral's flank. The airlock opened without resistance. Inside, corridors lit by bioluminescent moss, walls etched with promises in a dozen languages. No guards, no weapons, just quiet. Pete's voice was low. 27 life signs, all female, no tech, no threat. Trace stepped forward. "That's what worries me." They entered a central chamber shaped like a star. Brides knelt in concentric circles, heads bowed, hands clasped. At the center stood a figure in black robes, her face hidden beneath a veil of woven crystal. "You've come far," she said. Her voice was warm, unhurried. "But you've wasted the journey." Trace didn't speak. Pete scanned her. No implants, no deception, just ritual. The woman removed her veil. Her face was lined, her eyes clear. I am the matron. I don't command. I offer protection. Trace stepped closer. You built the network. I built a sanctuary, she said, for those who were promised love and given chains and bondage instead. Pete paced the chamber. You taught them to marry and run. I taught them to choose, she replied. Some ran. Some stayed. Some were never meant to be brides at all. Trace looked at the women. Some were scarred. Some were serene. None looked afraid. You're not hiding, he said. No, she said. We're remembering what could have been. Pete scanned the cathedral's systems. No weapons, no escape pods, no fraud. Trace stared at the matron. Then why all the mystic seer business? She smiled. Because myths survive. Truth doesn't. He paused. Cynthia. She passed through, the matron said. She asked for absolution. I gave her the peace of silence. Pete turned to Trace. No bounty here. No deception. Just tragic stories. Trace looked at the matron. You're not a criminal. No, she said. I'm a conduit to freedom. He turned to leave. Then let the galaxy decide your fate. As they walked back to the Paladin, the brides sang softly, a hymn without words, a melody older than war. Pete paused. Do you hear that? Trace nodded. It's not a warning. It's a pledge. The ship lifted into the void, carrying a man, a machine, and a myth that refused to die. Chapter 6. The Reckoning. The Paladin drifted in silence. Pete monitored the cathedral's coordinates, watching for hostile movement. The matron had vanished. No signal, no trace. But myths didn't disappear. They waited to reveal their true purpose. A transmission crackled through the void. Freighter noon kilogram, distress beacon. Coordinates match Cynthia's last jump. Pete's voice was clipped. Could be another trap. Trace didn't hesitate. We answer. They found the freighter adrift near a collapsed moon. Its hull was scorched, its engines dead. Inside, silence. Pete scanned the interior. Life signs, 1. Faint. No hostiles. Trace Hawkins boarded. Cynthia lay in the cargo bay, clutching a wound that wasn't bleeding. Her eyes opened slowly. You came, she said. You called, Trace replied. Pete scanned her. No critical injury. No deception, but she's hiding something. Cynthia sat up. I didn't run this time. I waited. I wanted you to see it. She handed Trace a data shard. It's everything. The network, the brides, the matron's real name. She was a colonist once, married, abandoned. She built her legend from grief. Her true purpose is revenge. Pete accessed the shard. Encrypted, but real. Trace looked at Cynthia. Why give it to me? Because you're not like the others. You don't want revenge. You want only the truth. A tremor shook the freighter. Pete's sensors flared. Hostile inbound, cloaked vessel. Weapons primed. Cynthia's face darkened. She found me. The Paladin powered up. The cloaked ship emerged, sleek, silent, and armed. Pete activated the defense grid. Engaging. Trace turned to Cynthia. Stay here. If we don't come back, burn the shard. Outside, the battle was swift and brutal. The cloaked ship fired plasma arcs, slicing through debris. Pete returned fire with precision, disabling engines but sparing the core. She's not trying to kill us, Pete said. She's trying to warn us away. Trace boarded the enemy ship. Inside, empty corridors, flickering lights, and a single message etched into the wall. You hunt brides. Who hunts you? Pete translated the symbols. It's a challenge. She's not done. Trace stared at the message. Neither are we. They returned to the freighter. Cynthia was gone. The shard remained. Pete powered down the weapons. She ran again. Trace picked up the shard. But she left the truth. The paladin vanished into hyperspace, carrying a man, a machine, and a myth that wasn't what it seemed. Chapter 7. The Long Pursuit. The paladin drifted beyond the rim. No trade routes, no colonies, just silence and drift. Pete monitored the systems, his voice quieter than usual. Signal decay. Cynthia's trail ends here. Trace didn't respond. He was staring at the shard Cynthia had left behind. Encrypted truth, unasked for absolution. Pete recalibrated. We could turn back. The bounties fractured. The network's exposed. Trace shook his head. She's still out there. And so is the matron. They reached a dead zone, a region where comms failed and sensors lied. The paladin slowed, its engines whispering against the void. Pete scanned the horizon. Structure detected. Minimal power. No registry. Could be her. Trace docked manually. Inside, a drifting archive. No brides, no guards, just data cores, old wedding bands, and fragments of vows recorded in dozens of languages. Pete accessed the main terminal. It's a ledger. Every bride, every colony, every departure. No theft, just names. Trace walked among the cores. Each one pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. She kept records, he said, not to control, to remember. Pete paused. There's a message. Trace nodded. Play it. The matron's voice filled the chamber. You hunt brides. You chase ghosts. But what you're really chasing is the shape of love in a broken galaxy. I didn't build a syndicate. I built a grand scheme. And you, Hunter, are part of it. Pete looked at Trace. She's not wrong. No, Trace said, but she's not right either. He left the archive untouched. No destruction, no extraction, just silence. Back aboard the Paladin, Pete recalibrated the bounty logs. Cynthia, unresolved. The matron, unclaimed. Network, now dormant. Trace stared into the stars. Then we wait. Pete powered down the weapons. You're not the same man who started this. Trace nodded. Neither are you. A transmission arrived days later. A bride. Not Cynthia. Not a target. Just a voice. Thank you, she said. You didn't hunt me. You listened. That saved me. Pete played it twice, then deleted it. Some things aren't meant to be stored, he said. Trace agreed. Some things are meant to be remembered. The Paladin turned toward the colonies, not to chase, but to witness. The legend was changing. The hunter was becoming something else. And somewhere in the dark between stars, a bride whispered a vow not to a man, but to herself. The transmission arrived without coordinates. No sender, no encryption. Just another voice, soft and clear, drifting through the void like a prayer. You didn't chase me. You didn't shame me. You listened. That saved me. Pete played it once, then again. Trace said nothing. Attached was a poem, unsigned, unclaimed, but unmistakably hers. Pete archived the message, then deleted the origin. No bounty, he said. No closure. Trace Hawkins nodded. Just legacy. The Paladin turned toward the colonies, not to chase, but to watch. Somewhere brides still vanish. Somewhere vows were still broken. But somewhere else, someone stayed. And in the quiet between stars, a man and a robot kept hunting for the truth. The end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you.